Welcome back to Beyond Wisdom, where we explore timeless truths for a more peaceful and meaningful life. Socrates is often remembered as the wisest man in ancient Greece. But he didn't call himself wise. In fact, he claimed to know nothing. And yet, for over 2,000 years, his name has been linked with the very idea of wisdom. So, what was his secret? What simple habit set him apart? And why does it still matter today? This video is about that one habit, a quiet, consistent practice that anyone can build. And it might just change how you think, how you speak, and how you live. Socrates had a habit that made many people uncomfortable. He asked questions, not to argue, not to trap others, but to understand. Whether he was talking with generals, poets, or tradesmen, he didn't pretend to know more than he did. He simply asked, "What do you mean by that?" Or, "How do you know it's true?" In a time when people prided themselves on having the right answers, Socrates was more interested in thoughtful questions. He would follow an idea slowly, carefully, and openly, not to win a debate, but to uncover the truth beneath appearances. Today, we're often taught to speak quickly and confidently, even when we're unsure. But Socrates lived the opposite way. His habit was simple: don't assume, ask. In doing so, he opened a quiet space between certainty and curiosity. And that space was where wisdom could grow. In Plato's writings, we rarely see Socrates giving long speeches. More often he's listening. Really listening. Not waiting for his turn to speak. Not interrupting to make a point, but paying close attention to the words and ideas of others. He believed that true understanding couldn't happen if we were too full of ourselves. He once said, "Nature has given us 2 ears and 1 tongue, so that we may listen twice as much as we speak." In modern life, it's easy to forget this balance. We are surrounded by noise, opinions, and pressure to be the loudest voice in the room. But wisdom, as Socrates practiced it, begins in silence, in listening deeply. Because when we listen without rushing to respond, we give ourselves the chance to learn something new, even from those we disagree with. One of the most remarkable things about Socrates was that he turned his questions inward. Before challenging others, he examined his own thoughts, his own motives, his own life. He famously said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." For him, wisdom didn't mean knowing everything. It meant knowing oneself. He spent his days walking through the city, speaking with people, but also reflecting on his own beliefs and blind spots. In today's world, we often look outside ourselves for answers, through books, news, or experts. But Socrates reminds us that the most important questions are personal. Why do I believe what I believe? Am I acting from truth or habit? What am I pretending not to know? These aren't easy questions, but they are the doorway to real clarity. Socrates didn't claim to have the truth. In fact, his wisdom began when he admitted he didn't. According to Plato, the oracle at Delphi once declared that no one was wiser than Socrates. When he heard this, Socrates was confused because he didn't consider himself wise at all. But after speaking to others who thought they knew everything, he realized that his one advantage was knowing he did not know. This humble posture became his strength. He wasn't trying to appear intelligent. He wasn't trying to win arguments. He simply kept his mind open. In our current age of confidence and quick takes, there's something deeply refreshing about someone who says, "I don't know." That space of uncertainty, held with humility, is where learning lives. Socrates didn't use complicated words or abstract theories. He used ordinary language, stories, and simple examples because he believed truth should be accessible. One of his favorite analogies compared the human soul to a charioteer guiding two horses, one noble and one wild. His goal wasn't to impress, but to awaken, to help people see clearly. In a society where knowledge can sometimes feel distant or wrapped in jargon, this simplicity is a kind of wisdom on its own. Socrates knew that when something is truly understood, it doesn't need to be dressed up. It speaks for itself. And the clearest truths, like honesty, kindness, and courage, can usually be said in plain words. You know, it's easy to talk about ideas, but it's a whole lot harder to actually live them. Socrates made people uncomfortable, not just because he questioned them, but because he lived with a kind of stubborn integrity. When he was put on trial for, well, corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, he refused to beg for his life. He just told the truth as he saw it. And even when he was offered the chance to escape execution, he declined. He believed that escaping would violate his principles, and honestly, he would rather die honestly than live dishonestly. This wasn't for show or anything like that. It was the result of a lifetime spent aligning thought, word, and action. These days we're surrounded by noise, social pressure, reputation, and endless opinion. Socrates reminds us that wisdom isn't measured by how much we say, but by how closely we live what we claim to believe. Though we don't have journals from Socrates, it's clear from his dialogues that reflection was a daily practice. He would walk the streets of Athens, asking questions, thinking deeply, and pausing often. In one story, he stood still for hours, lost in thought, contemplating a single problem. This wasn't escapism, it was presence. In our fast-moving world, we rarely stop long enough to let things sink in. But Socrates' habit of regular reflection helped him stay connected to the deeper layers of life. Wisdom isn't rushed. It comes from slowing down and paying attention to our thoughts, our actions, and the quiet voice within. The simple habit that made Socrates the wisest man alive wasn't genius or education. It was the practice of sincere, humble questioning of others and of himself. It was the courage to not know, the discipline to listen, and the quiet strength to live his values, even when it cost him everything. In a world full of noise and certainty, his way offers something different, a return to calm, honest reflection. Wisdom, it turns out, isn't about having all the answers. It's about holding the right questions and living close to the truth they reveal. What's one question you haven't asked yourself in a long time, but know you should? Share it in the comments. Thanks for watching. If this video brought you value, subscribe to Beyond Wisdom. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and stay wise.